Long before you even step on board a flight, a really critical safety ritual has already happened down on the tarmac. So today, we're going to join an HER 72 captain and break down that ritual, the pre-flight walkaround. We're going to see what they really look for to make absolutely sure that your flight is safe. And I love this quote from our guide, Captain Magnar. He just puts it so perfectly. This is not some casual glance around the plane. No way. It's a systematic, really high-stakes inspection where every single detail matters. This really sets the stage for the meticulous process we're about to see. So here's our game plan. First, we'll get into the why behind the walkaround. Then we're going to start our tour around the plane, starting with the port side gear, then moving to the wings and the engine, around the nose, down the other side, and finally checking out the tail before we get the all clear for the cockpit. Okay, let's dive right in. More than kicking tires, what's the real reason for this whole routine? Well, this whole complex dance really just boils down to four main goals. The pilot is methodically scanning for any kind of damage, dents, wrinkles, anything that looks out of place. They're on the hunt for any fluid leaks, checking for any missing parts, and of course, making sure all those bright red remove before flight covers are actually gone. Just so we're all on the same page, the aircraft we're following today is the ATR 72-600. It's basically the bigger sibling of the ATR 42. And a really easy way to spot these newer ones? Just look at the propellers. They've got 6 blades, which is a big change from the 4 blades you'd see on the older models. All right, our inspection begins right here at the main passenger door. The first thing the captain does is check the door seals for any sand or grit, because anything there could stop it from sealing perfectly. From there, it's on to our first major stop, the main landing gear and all its complex hydraulic systems. So one of the very first things to check is tucked away inside the hydraulic bay. It's the emergency brake accumulator. You can kind of think of it as a pressurized backup battery for the brakes. It makes sure that even if other systems were to fail, the pilot can still stop the plane. Its pressure is an absolute go or no-go item. And here it is, the magic number. That gauge has to read at least 1,600 pounds per square inch, no exceptions. Now, in the check we're watching, it's actually closer to 3,000 psi, which is fantastic. But it just goes to show you, this is all about hitting exact numbers, not just looking okay. Okay, next, the captain pops open the panels to get a good look at the hydraulic fluid tank. And the most important thing here isn't just the fluid level, it's making sure there are absolutely 0 leaks. The entire bay needs to be bone dry. That's how you know the system is perfectly sealed. Now we get to the part everyone thinks about, kicking the tires. The pilot checks the condition, of course, looking for wear and tear. But again, it all comes down to a specific number. For a takeoff weight of 23,000 kilograms, these tires need to be inflated to exactly 123 psi. And check this out. This little switch is a perfect example of simple mechanics controlling really complex systems. When the plane takes off and the gear extends, this little switch physically moves. That movement sends a simple signal that says, hey, we're flying now. And that tells all sorts of other systems to act differently than they would on the ground. So simple, but so clever. Okay, leaving the gear behind, we're now at the root of the wing. And this area, this is all about the fundamentals of flight, right? You've got lift from the wings and you've got thrust from these powerful turboprop engines. This part of the check is all about aerodynamics and raw power. Here are a couple of cool little details specific to the ATR. At the wing root, there's a flap rail seal that the crews have nicknamed the banana seal. You can probably guess why. And then further out on the wing, you've got this simple mechanical marker. It's a low-tech backup. If the fancy electronic flap indicator in the cockpit fails, a pilot can literally just look out the window to see the flap position. How smart is that? Now, the propeller inspection is really hands-on. The captain physically gets in there and turns the propeller, checking each one of the 6 blades one by one on both sides. The front edge is made of super tough titanium to handle any impacts, while the rest is a lightweight composite. And finally, they check the heated pads on the blades are all intact, which is absolutely critical for preventing dangerous ice from building up in flight. And speaking of ice, this is a brilliant bit of hidden safety design. That patch of the fuselage right in line with the propellers, it isn't just plain old aluminum, it's a layer of Kevlar. Its job is to act like a bulletproof vest for the airplane, absorbing the hit if a chunk of ice flies off the propeller and stopping it from puncturing the skin. All right, we've made our way to the very front of the aircraft. The nose section is basically the plane's sensory hub. It is just covered in this array of probes and sensors that feed all the critical data about the air it's flying through straight to the pilot's instruments. So here are the key players. You've got the angle of attack vane for stall warnings, the pitot tubes for airspeed, static ports for altitude, and that ice evidence probe is just a simple visual cue for icing. Now, the reason these get checked so carefully is that if any one of them gets blocked by ice, dirt, even an insect, it could feed dangerously wrong information to the pilots, and that is a huge problem. Tucked away right under the cockpit window is this tiny but super important indicator. It's just a little green disc. If that disc is there, it means the crew's emergency oxygen bottle is full and ready to go. If it were missing, that would mean the oxygen has been discharged and the bottle has to be replaced before the plane can fly. Okay, we are rounding the bend, continuing our journey around the starboard or right side of the plane. A lot of the checks over here are just mirrors of what we saw on the other side, the gear, the wing, the engine, but there are a few unique things to look at as we head towards the tail. On this side, we find the refueling panel. It's this really slick, fully automatic system. The ground crew just pre-selects how much fuel they need. In this flight, it was 1,800 kilograms. The system then automatically pumps it in and balances it perfectly between the two wing tanks. And the pilot can double-check all those numbers right here. And at the very back of the plane, we find the tail bumper. See, because the ATR-72 has a longer body, it needs this little shock-absorbing prop to prevent the tail from hitting the runway during takeoff. Part of the check is to look for any scratches on it. If there are any, that means there's been a tail strike, which automatically triggers a big maintenance inspection. And just like that, we've come full circle. We are right back at the main passenger door where we started. The walk-around is complete. In just a few minutes, the pilot has done hundreds of individual checks and synthesized all of that information down to one single critical decision. This aircraft is safe to fly. So let's just take a second to think about what we've seen. It wasn't just a random list of parts. It was a check of entire systems. We went from the big picture stuff, like the health of the fuselage skin and the wings, all the way down to the tiniest details, like the pressure in one tire or a tiny little sensor. It's the final, crucial human check before all the technology takes over. So it kind of leaves you with this thought, right? The next time you're boarding a flight and you happen to look out the window and see the pilot walking around the plane, you'll have a whole new appreciation for what's actually going on. You'll know it's so much more than just kicking the tires.